How many of you aspire to be in senior leadership roles? The data says that the ratio of men to women in senior leadership are quite skewed because when the women starts climbing up the ladder, there are certain additional responsibilities they have to handle as compared to the male counterparts. But then there are those who have done that, who have been there, and who are here with us today to inspire us to achieve the success that we have always been aiming for. So, hello everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of Renaissance with Swati. And today I have with me Meeta Lee, who's a leadership and OD consultant, and she has spent 37 years in various senior leadership roles in the corporate. Hi, Meeta, how are you?
I'm good, Swati. It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
So, Meeta, 37 years in corporate leadership. It's not a small feat. So, would you like to talk about your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Frankly speaking, now when I look back, I feel, oh my God, 37 years. But when I was doing it, it just didn't feel that much because when you're so involved and you're so busy, time just flies and it's such a good feeling to be busy all the time. And all this for me, it started with my family. So the inspiration comes from your parents. And in my case, because my mom has always been a working mom, we've kind of grown up with that there's no other option. You have to work, and she's the one who really pushed me. So I still remember when I delivered my first baby, and there's a lot of guilt that how do you leave your child behind? But I think she was the one that if you be get emotionally swayed now, then you will regret it. And I'm so grateful that I took her advice. So that has been the starting point, and there has been no looking back after that. And so I strongly believe that while you learn leadership along the way and all your mentors and your bosses and your colleagues. You learn from them, but it starts at home with the values. And I'm still not saying that it's only working mothers who inspire children. No, not at all. I have lots of friends whose parents or mothers, especially, have not been working, but they have pushed their children. So it's that mindset. If a woman has that mindset, then they can actually push others, their children, and all to go ahead and make a career out of this. So that's been my starting point.
I can so relate to it in the sense that I have spent 15 years in the corporate. But like you said, after having kids, there's always a constant mom guilt. And sometimes you just feel like I have to quit. I'm not giving enough. How to balance between handling your kids, how to handle all the responsibilities. And yes, our parents push. My mom is always there who keeps it. Whenever I tell her that, I want to quit, she's like, no, don't quit. Just stay there.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's difficult.
yeah.
So how did you navigate, all these phases of life?
Yeah, absolutely. I started my career in a very tough industry. I started in the hospitality industry. And in the hospitality industry, you're always on your toes. There are no timings as such. Especially when you're in operations or when you're in a client facing role, then you just have to be on call. And in those days, there were no cell phones, but you would get calls on the landlines also from the hotel or from your boss saying that you need to be here for this important event, etc. So yeah, it was definitely not easy. There was a lot of guilt, but what I did was I still remember that after my son was born and I went for this first interview, and I very candidly spoke to the general manager and I told him that I have a small baby and I was getting into an operational role, but timings would
Okay.
be a challenge. He was very understanding, and he said that we'll try to maintain the timings as much as possible. So, along with that support, I was able to pull a few years. And I still remember that when my second son was born, I was already 2 years into that role in the hospitality industry. And I must be one of the few, I think, in the record that, somebody who's joined work before the maternity leave got over, you know. So again, that is
Mhm.
because my boss was very cooperative. I was that time in the sales and marketing role, and he said that you can go home as many times during the day you want, but please join back. We need extra hands to help us with the sales and marketing. And so that support, it has to be both ways, right? If you have a good support and if you have a good understanding with the management and with the team, then that also helps. And People value your work once they know that you're doing sincere job, you're
Right.
committed, you're hardworking. These are the basics for any role. So that
Right.
is what kind of helped me in terms of my social life. I mean, because like you rightly said, right, there's so much guilt. So in terms of my social life, I made sure that my weekends were 200% committed only to my kids. And that's something that my husband also did. I had a lot of support from my husband also. And we just said that we are just going to spend time with the kids. We are just not going to go for any parties. And when you're in the hotel industry, there are so many parties, I can tell you. But we just declined politely, and friends understood, of course. So that was that. Sales and marketing, typically it used to be a 9 to 6 job. I was lucky to stay just behind the hotel. So that made a lot of difference. This was in
Right.
Hyderabad. And, that time was totally dedicated to the kids. So that's the way we kind of managed. We saw the first few years, there were certain things we had to adjust. There was always challenges, maid challenges and some other challenges, the kids falling ill, then who would take an off. And, there was a lot of adjustment, but I think I've been blessed with a good husband, with good support system. And believe me, when I was in Hyderabad and all my family, all my relatives were in Mumbai. So there was nobody in Hyderabad. So I was also lucky to have very good neighbors and friends who supported me. And of course, the place where I was working were also very supportive.
Like you rightly mentioned, right, a support system is very important. And along with that, a supportive management is also important. Like you mentioned that they allowed you to go as many times as you want to reach out to your kids. So how did you transition from hospitality industry to the corporates then?
So, in the hospitality industry, if you need to grow, then it's very important that you actually have to be mobile because they have locations, they have hotels all across the
Mm.
country. And if you need to get promoted, then they expect that you should be mobile. You should move to
Right.
different
Mhm.
properties and get that exposure. So that was a constraint for me because I didn't want to uproot the kids and get them to
Mhm.
adjust. There was already a lot of adjusting they were doing. By the time my children were 6 and 7, they were literally on their own, being in the house all by themselves and with clear instructions what time to have lunch and what time to have their other snacks, what time to do the homework, and they were following that. So there was a lot of thing happening over there. And then when I was already into the hotel industry for close to 7 years, got promoted within property from a sales executive to an assistant sales manager. And then when I had to take charge as a sales manager, I was asked if I would like to move to another place, another city. So I declined because I didn't want to uproot the kids, like I said. So then I decided to then look for something else. And that's when I joined the retail. So there was this gentleman from whom I had actually bought my flat. And he also had these franchisees for different outlets. And that's the time when Tanishq first came. It was a new thing that Tata had started, and they were looking for boutique managers. And this gentleman had a lot of franchisees. So he had Titan, he had Tanishq, he had Swarovski. So he was looking for a group manager. So he
Mhm.
just called me out of nowhere and said that, are you interested? And I was like, yeah, why not? So that was a totally new experience. And I'm so glad I joined it because it gave me a total different learning. Retail was something that was a very new thing to me. Understanding all the nuances of the retail industry was really interesting. So that's when I was there for about 1.5 years, and that was the time when the BPO culture had just come into India. And that's the time I remember again, and this is all Hyderabad, when HSBC and GE were starting their BPOs in Hyderabad. And again, I'm lucky to have such good friends. There was this one friend, and she told me, come on, now you need to get out of retail. How long are you going to take care of boutiques? Now these BPOs are coming. Why don't you apply? And I applied for both, and I was lucky to get offers from both of them. But I preferred to join HSBC because
Right.
that was not a third party. It was their own, processing center for the global. So that's where I joined them. And I joined in operations and I saw a lot of growth. I was there for 7 years, from a manager operations to senior vice president in learning and development, administration. So a lot of learning again over there. That's where I saw a lot of interesting things, and was able to prove myself.
If you switch from one industry to another industry, you have to learn a lot. You have to
Absolutely.
explore all the nuances of that industry and managing all those learnings, your continuous learning as well as your kids learning. How did you manage that? Did you ever feel that it's getting overwhelming, not able to handle it? Any such phase in your life, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, there were times, there were times, for example, there is some important training or some meeting at work, and then all sort of things tend to happen at that time. Your maid will not turn up, or your child will fall sick, there's always some problem, and that's the time you really feel a lot of pressure. And again, when I was working with HSBC, the timings were not very inconvenient, but we were working UK timing. So our day would start at like 10 or 11 in the morning and then till 8 or 9 in the night. So I was always really worried because the kids would be at home. But then luckily, like I said, with my husband was also in the hotel, so he also had shifts. But we somehow managed. What has, I think, really worked for us was that we had these weekly meetings with the family. So I would sit my sons down and explain to them that how we are busy and how we need to be at work and how they need to take on additional responsibilities. And that would be just listening to what we said. And both of them were boys. So, boys will be boys. So they always had that little bit of adventure and a lot of musty they wanted to do. But so I had to kind of, keep talking to them, my husband and I, and we managed. But yeah, there were times when I've come home and I've like cried and I've said, I think I want to quit the job. And I said, I don't think I can take this anymore. So all those instances have been there, but you just kind of push yourself, okay? And then family support has always been there. If I told my mother, she would say, don't be crazy. Take leave for maybe a few days, go back and come. In fact, I would like to share this incident. So when I was in the hotel industry, my first job, and my son was born, my first child, and he was just about 6 months, and I was just not able to get somebody to take care of. I was not able to get a nanny to take care of him. And my husband was in the hotel industry, like I said, and though he was very close to where we were staying, but this was becoming a very high pressure job for me, the hotel industry. So I spoke to my boss, and she said, I'm sorry, I really can't help you. You just have to be there now. In the evening, we have these important dinners and functions, and your presence is important. You have to be there, show your face for half an hour, 45 minutes. And I was finding it very difficult. And he was like, my kid was just 6 months old, and there was no way. So that was the time I just broke and I put in my papers. So my resignation was accepted. And then I came to Bombay to spend time with my mother. And I was there, and after 15, 20 days, I got a call from my general manager saying that what happened, why did you leave? Then I explained to him, I said, see, this was the case and it was very difficult. And I spoke to my boss, but she said she cannot manage that. So he said, okay, do you want to work? I said, of course I want to work, but unfortunately the situation is not in my favor. So he said, no, we would love to have you back. So you take a couple of months leave without pay. We'll consider it as a leave without pay. You manage all your resources, etc., and come back and join. So that again helped me, because then I got a couple of months to manage how to get sorted. And then I came back and I joined back the work. So it was kind of a break for me. But I was again lucky to have this. The manager called me, the general manager of the hotel. And if you know the hotel industry, like the general manager is supposed to be like a big thing, you know. So if the GM has called you, then like it's wow, the GM has called me
Right.
type.
Right. No, I
So
understand that. And like you mentioned, breaks give you a whole new perspective. There are times in my career as well where I just feel very, very overwhelming, and I just tell my partner that I want to quit. And he's like, just some leaves, take a break, introspect, retrospect, and then decide. Don't take a decision on the spot. And when you take that break, you really feel that, okay, I can try a bit more. Let me just try to push myself and go with the flow.
yeah, absolutely. See, and nowadays things are changing with diversity, inclusion, equality. A lot of importance is being given to care and employee engagement and all that. In those days, I'm not saying it was not there, but there was no separate concept focusing on it. I would say that I have experienced all of this. I've experienced engagement, I've experienced care, empathy, I've experienced everything without really having a separate focus on that area. But now I can see a lot of organizations have giving a lot of importance. So when I was with Jombe, we used to do a lot of these open workshops on first time managers and women leadership, and they talks about that.
But in your whole career, have you seen that women struggle to get into senior leadership? Because the data says that women in middle management are still okay, but when we move to senior management, the ratio gets quite skewed. So have you seen that trend in your experience?
Yeah, so the thing is that I'll tell you, in my times, even women, when they were interviewed, they used to get asked questions like, what if your husband gets transferred? What will you do? Or what if you get pregnant and if you're going to have babies, how will you manage? So these questions, like, typically it's not fair, right? Because it's part of your woman's life cycle. So how does it impact? So these were the things, and I've also seen, especially in the hotel industry, when we had some women who were really good at their job. But I've seen the senior management when we used to be in some discussions and all, they would say that, okay, no, let's not look at this one because she's going to go in the transfer, her husband is going to get transferred, or she's going to be in the family way soon, and then there'll be a gap. We don't know whether she's going to come back. See, all of that happening definitely in the hotel industry. But then also, the good thing about the hotel industry is that when they recruit you, or when you're undergoing the training. So I did my diploma in hotel management, the 3-year diploma. So that time you're told that whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, you will have to work night shifts. You will have to work. So you have to be mentally prepared. Also seen what happens is that many people who complete the course, and then after that, when they are in their jobs, they themselves give up also. Because see, in those days, a lot of families were not very comfortable with their daughters in the hotel industry, and then especially working night shifts. So that also, I think, added. When I joined HSBC, that time there was no such thing, because being a global company, they already had their diversity, equality, inclusion all put in place. So there I didn't see, it was totally based on merit. In fact, that's where I learned that, you can't be asking these questions in interviews, right? You can't be asking, if it's a woman, that how will you manage your family, etc. So it's just, if they're capable, we just take them. So I think that way. And then by the time I left HSBC, again, there I worked close to 7 years. And then I started my own consulting company for another 4 years. Came to Pune, joined another consulting company. There again, they were all senior consultants. So I did not see any bias or anything over there. And then my last job with Jombe, where I think I was the oldest employee. I worked with all the people who are at least 20 years younger than me. So there again, there was so much learning, and with Jombe also, it's been fantastic. There's like equality, so it doesn't matter you're a guy or a girl or a whatever. They just, so those I've been, really lucky that way.
That's wonderful. And like you said, your last role was as a client partner in Jombe. So, as a client partner in Jombe, I think you kids had been grown up by now, and you must be having grandkids as well. So, it's kind of a leadership at workplace as well as a leadership at home. You have to be the boss at both the positions. How does that feel?
Yeah. Oh, it feels great. And everybody like kind of knows, right? I'm the boss. Anybody asks my husband anything, he says, please ask the boss. So yeah, it's good. What is the best thing that a parent wants, a mother or a father? They want that their kids should grow up to be great human beings. And I
Right.
can see that in both my boys. They're both wonderful. My eldest son is in Qatar. He is with the airlines. He's doing very well. He's a father now. And I can see the way my husband and I brought the kids up. I can see, the kind of, besides spoiling the kid, I think nowadays the parents spoil the kids too much. But in terms of taking responsibility, so it's not only about doing whatever for your kid, but being a responsible parent, supporting the wife. All this is very important. Similarly, with my younger son, he's recently married. The kind of responsibility, because both my daughter-in-laws are working, so the kind of sharing that responsibility, it gives you really a good feeling that they are not those typical husbands who expects the wives to do everything. It's equality over there, and not only in terms of helping and supporting, in terms of the freedom that the wives can do what they want, what they feel like, and that communication is happening between them. That's a good thing to see. So it's a great feeling. The other thing, 30th June was my last day, and I sent an email out to everybody, to the entire company, saying that I'm moving up. The kind of emails that I got really brought a lump in my throat because they were so touchy. I was so proud that I had made difference to so many lives. In Bombay, I was there for a good 6.5 years and had done a lot of hiring. And those people today, when I hired them 6 years back, and they've grown to positions and senior positions, and it really feels so good. So that at least you know that, okay, I've made an impact on so many people's lives.
So that brings to my next question. When my kids come to me, and they're very small right now, 4 and 2. So little one doesn't ask much. She just says, "Mama ki call chal rahi hai," and the elder one who's 4 now, she says, "Mama, आप काम क्या करते हो?" So I'm not able to explain to her कि मैं काम क्या करती हूँ because she just sees me on calls, right?
Yeah,
She
yeah.
doesn't actually know. So I don't know how to tell her that, how I am creating an impact sitting on a computer, just talking to people. Did your kids used to ask such kind of questions, and how did you handle?
Yeah, so my kids, they were too small at that time when I was working, so they didn't really know what exactly I'm doing. But from the time they've grown up, they knew that I've always been in the learning and development space. So they know that, my mother's a trainer and she does facilitation. They also knew that I was in the hotels because there were a lot of stories. And in the hotels, we used to have a lot of events where we were allowed to bring our families. So they were
Mhm.
exposed to that. And again, being in the hotels, you get all these discounts. So you tend to take your kids once in a way for a dinner. So that feeling of, wow, I've been for a dinner in a five-star hotel in those times. So they knew that there was an association in the hotels. They knew there was an association as a learning and development facilitator, trainer. But they never asked. I guess because they were boys. I don't know. You have a son and a daughter, right?
I have both daughters.
Acha, both daughters. So maybe
Right.
if you had a son, I think the son is more interested in playing and knowing when can I get my video game, and I think they are more that way inclined. So they never really used to ask me all that. And in those days, it was more like going to office. So they just knew mother's gone to office. Now she'll come back at this time.
Mhm.
There were no online calls and all that time which used to happen. But now, of course, they know it all. They themselves are doing all this.
So, like you said, that you used to work in shifts as well. So, you used to work in UK shifts, and sometimes we also need to work in the American shift as well.
Yeah.
And that is complete opposite. So, at that point of time, do you think the leadership was supportive to you? Or when you became a senior leader, how do you support women working in all these shifts? Because it is difficult with the additional responsibilities, right?
Yeah. So maybe because of the processes that I was involved, I did very little with the US shift. I was mostly involved with the UK shift only. And there were a few times when being in L&D, I had to speak to the US shift guys. So that's why I had to be away in the night for a few days and meet up with these stakeholders to talk to them. But that was really minuscule because that was like
Okay.
very few days I had to do that. So I really didn't face any issues. Again, because I didn't work in the US shift, I didn't face those kind of challenges with my team coming up to me and telling me. But when I was in the UK shifts, I had these managers who were all young women. In fact, I think all of them were women. I had about 5 to 6 women managers. That time they used to be called team leaders, who had a team of, about 25 people each.
Mhm.
And they were all young mothers, and some of them were unmarried. Some of them were mothers. So when they had challenges and all, I mean, I would understand. And I would have one-on-ones also to guide them because that time even I was a young mother. So I would share my experiences and tell them that how they can manage, but there were no major issues as such.
So, like today, there's a boom, right? People want to move out of corporate. First of all, like you said, that you've been in industries for 7 years and with the same company. But these years, we see the younger generation who's coming in. They want to switch early. Loyalty is not appreciated now. So, what is your take on that?
Yeah, so I used to first find it very shocking. So when I was recruiting and I used to see the resume, because when we had learnt how to interview and how to scan a CV, how to interpret. We were told in those days that somebody who keeps job hopping, like if they have not stayed for about 1 or 2 years, and they keep moving, then you have to be careful, right? That means this person is not really going to stick around with you. But then later on, especially for example, when I joined Jombay and I did a lot of interviewing, I found that people were again not sticking. In the CV, I would find they worked for 1 year and 2 years, and it moved so much. And I used to have this chat with my CEO and say that they're just not stable, right? So he told me, he said, Meeta, nowadays, if people stick for 2.5 years, it's considered to be pretty okay, because you don't find that anymore. The young generation today, I think they are more ambitious, and more than ambitious, I would say they are very impatient. So they just want that things to be moving very fast. And today the world is also like this, right? Everything is moving so fast. There's so much ambiguity. There's so much that VUCA, and you hear about all these things. So it becomes very boring for them if you don't make the assignment or the job challenging for them. So that has kind of become a new way of life. If somebody is giving you 2.5 to 3 years, that's good enough now. Nowadays, I don't think you can expect anybody to give you like some 7 years and 8 years. I'm not saying these people are not there. They are there, of course, but at least with the younger generation, they are like butterflies, right? From close to mother. I'll give you an example of my own children. So
Okay.
my younger son is about 32 years old, but right from the time he started his career, he's been pretty stable wherever he works. Similarly, my older one, he's also been with the airlines, so he was also I think in the airlines, this is just a second job. He was with Jet Airways for about 4 or 5 years, and then he's been now with Qatar Airways. It's been 11 years. Even my younger son, he was with CNBC for at least 5 years before then he was assignment, and he's pretty stable and satisfied with what he's doing. But
Okay.
yes, it takes all types, right, to make the world. So see, when I was in Jombay, I've hired people at an entry level, and they've been here for 5, 6 years. So it's not that you don't have those kind of people, but yeah, they are quite few. Then you
I think
have
it
the
depends on the leadership as well, right? I think a person quits a job not because they quit, of course, for money, but then they also quit because if they do not have a good leader or good team. I think that is most important.
which is true, but I also feel that it's in all the cases it's not true, because I've seen people who've had challenging assignments, who've had good managers, but still for them money is number one. So there are quite a lot of people who just leave only for money. I've seen that also in my.
Okay.
There are people, of course, who would leave because of the managers, etc. But a
Mhm.
lot of them I've seen leave because of the money. So it's a very good thing to read this, that people quit not because of this, they quit because of the managers. I'm not saying it's not true, it is true. But
Mhm.
yes, the reverse is also true, that a lot of people quit also because of the money. And I've seen that happening.
Yeah, of course, in the corporate, they get good money and they think that why not quit and go somewhere else where
Yeah.
you
And
can
like
get.
I mentioned, that the generation today, they are very impatient. They want to earn more and fast. So there's nothing wrong with that. So why not? Yeah.
Yeah. So touching back on the point that a good leadership and good managers are very important, and like you are a leadership consultant now. So what do you think that differentiates a good leader from a not so good leader?
This is again a very specific question to different leaders. So you must have heard, right? There's no wrong or right leadership style as such. There are times when you have to be empathetic. There are times when you have to be task driven. There are times when you have to come down harshly on people.
Mhm.
So situational leadership is all about that, right? How you adapt yourself to different situations. And every person has its own unique style. So if you talk about me as a leader, if you ask a lot of people who love me, but they will tell you that they are scared of me. So they will tell, in fact, there was a note that I got and they said that, "No, you've been wonderful. We're going to miss you. And I'm here because of you. And I am where I am thanks to your coaching and guiding. We're scared of you," right? So it's not about the leadership style. It's about the personality. It's about the way. So I have always been a very direct person. So I don't
Okay.
like to mince words. And my friends will also tell you the same about me. So I've been very direct. While if you see as a leader, I follow the right things. So I am able to adapt to different situations
Mhm.
where I need to give harsh feedback. I do that. Of course, I do it in the right way. So call the person, speak one on one. I will not, there are certain things they say that you don't need to reprimand in front of others. You need to do a
Right.
one on. So all that I
Right.
do. I do have one on one sessions and all, but I am not always a soft spoken leader or somebody who will fear. I mean, that I think I have also sacked a lot of people in my journey. So I have to had to let people go because despite conversations, despite trying to make them understand, and despite giving multiple chances where they failed to step up, I had to discuss with the management and I had the support of the management where they said, okay, if you think that this person should go, so then be it. So there have been, it's difficult, you feel bad, but then sometimes you have to do it. So I think to be a good leader, you should be able to take those tough calls.
Mhm.
You cannot always be known as a nice leader and a nice person. I'm happy that if people are telling me that you are wonderful, but we are scared of you, it's okay. I mean, because for me, I don't want to be scared of me, but if being this has benefited you, then why not? So I think there are many different aspects to that leadership and each one carries their own unique style and you learn about the leadership theories along the way, right? There's something that you read, there's something that you see, you attend the training programs, you see leadership in your own house, right? From the time you were a kid and how you're raised. So you see that you see leadership among your friends. And it's not necessary that everything you read you have to follow. So when I was in HSBC, I was lucky to have worked with a global audience. So she was from UK and she used to tell me that people don't use their common sense. And she said common sense is something which is very rare because you just can't go by the book and just read that, okay, so you've read about some leadership style and you say that, okay, this is something that I need to follow. And then you follow it even when it's not the right way to do it in that particular situation. So there are something that you need to apply and you need to decide for yourself that what is the right. And I'm not saying that I did not make any mistakes as a leader. I'm sure I have made mistakes, but I don't regret any of those. So I'm sure it was not a major mistake that I made. Small styles where I might have just blown off the lid. There are times when I would have said something. I feel that I could have done it a little differently. I could have said things differently, but I'm not really regretted anything that I still remember that, oh, at this time I should have done this. So that is not there. So I think I did pretty good.
Nice. So, like you said, that you sacked a lot of people. So, sitting on the other side of the table when the people are laid off, what is your advice to them?
So, see, when I had to sack a lot of people, so there were multiple conversations before that. So we have
Mhm.
one-on-ones, we document that, saying that it's either about your performance or it's about something that you're not doing. Despite that, there are always follow up. When you put a person on a PIP, then you have multiple conversations, and then you tell them after that also it's not working. Then you just have to say. So first, I try to find out in the initial, not only at the time of sacking, but before that only, if there is something which is worrying them. Are
Mhm.
they not happy? Is something that is something that we can do differently? Is there any
Correct.
support that they need? So all those things happen. After that, if they don't open up or they don't tell you the truth because they have maybe some other agenda in mind.
Mhm.
I've seen that, when people are looking, let's say, for another job and they have a high hope that this is going to come to them, but they're not sure. And that's the time their behavior starts changing. And then when they get the other job and in the meanwhile, they're already on PIP over here because they were not performing and all that. And at that time, when you have this conversation with them that I'm saying, sorry, we can't go ahead, we discuss this. Is there anything now also, if there is something in your mind, please speak up. Most of the times I've seen people don't speak up. They don't speak up. They just say, no, it's okay, it's okay. And then they leave and they just join the other place, and we get to know via LinkedIn that okay, so and so has joined over there. And there are a lot of people who actually tell lies also. They say that we want to do further studies, that is why we are distracted, and then you find out after 15-20 days that the person has gone and joined another organization. For me as a person, these are things which are against my values. Telling a lie, I mean, you don't have to lie. There's nobody's going to crucify you, right? If you want to leave a job, you just tell them that you want to leave for whatever reasons. So people, I feel, are still very hesitant to have that very frank one-on-one dialogues at work. However friendly they are, and however you feel that the comfort level is very high, very few people have actually told the truth while leaving, or when they are on a personal action plan. So they don't tell you. They say, no, everything is fine. No, I am absolutely fine. No, I will ensure that I'll pull up my socks, I'll do this, I won't repeat this again. But then after a month, they've already made up their mind. Again, it's back to square one.
Okay. That happens. But then there are those people, who are sometimes good, who have not done any fault, but sometimes they become the scapegoat. Have you seen such instances?
So we've seen at the time of COVID, we had to let go of the performers who were good, but maybe by asking them to go, it would not have made a great impact. But they were good at the role. So that's the time that you feel bad, but then you just say that such is life, because sometimes management has to take calls like this when you know that everybody knows what happened at the time of COVID. But as an organization, what we did was we were at least able to identify those people before calling them, have a one-on-one conversation, call them in a room and tell them on their face, not sending like a WhatsApp message and saying, okay.
There's a startup boom in India, right? That everybody wants to leave their jobs and just go and open their own startup, especially with the younger generation coming in. So what is your take on that? Should they stick to a company, a corporate, or because we see a lot of people leaving for opening their own startups these days?
Yeah. As long as they have done their homework. First of all, I think it's very important to experience working yourself for a few years before you get into a startup. And after that, you do your pros and cons, you do your study, your plan. You have to be mentally prepared. So there are two kinds of people. There are people who are optimists and there are people who are pessimists. So a good balance of thinking about both, because over optimism is not going to help you. So while it's a good thing to get you started, but you can't really sustain that for very long. But if you have a very balanced kind of a thought process in your mind, then that sustains longer, because you see a lot of positive people getting like really positive and then they just go down, right? So I think that preparation, that study, the homework, being really very sure of what if the business flops, what are the options. So all your contingency planning, all your risk assessments, and the time, you have to really chart out a time and see the action plan. That is very important if you want to get into a startup. But if there is a very strong will to do it, then of course you should always follow your heart, but not blindly follow it. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and that is important. And I'll give you again a very close example. So my son wanted to start his own restaurant, and we burnt our fingers. So my husband also had his restaurant, and we had a bad experience because somehow we are not the people with high business acumen. There are people who can be good workers, but running their own thing. So, and we, of course, at that time, no, we'll just start. We are from the hotel industry and blah, blah, blah. And, we went in, and after a couple of years, we had to shut it down because we really did very badly. So, though our food was very good, of course, and all, but like I said, the business acumen part, the strategic part didn't work out. And my son had seen all this, my elder one. So, he was very keen that I want to start my own restaurant. So, we gave him all the tips from our failures. These are the things that you shouldn't do. But he still went ahead and he still ventured out. Of course, he did a lot of study, he did a lot of preparation, he did all that. But then eventually, again, in a year or so, he had to shut it down. He was not able to manage. So these are the things the youngsters also, that maturity is lacking to think these things through. So that's very important. It doesn't matter how old you are, but if you have that maturity to understand, then that is important. Yeah.
So startup is one thing, but then we also see that when a woman is getting married in India, the times are changing, but still there are a lot of families who look for women who are into teaching or, who are just homemakers. There are still India a lot of people who expect a woman to just handle the family responsibilities. What would be your advice to them?
My advice will be very dangerous, but yeah. So I think these things, the girls who get married have to really put their foot down before they get married and before they get into an agreement and agree to all these things. Because if they've agreed and got into it, then what can you say, right? But if you're clear of what you want and you know that this is something that you want to follow after marriage, then I think setting those expectations is very important. Otherwise, it can only lead to frustration. And then you've seen misses, right? So there can be frustration. Otherwise, people just end up doing a lot of compromise and they just live their lives, but they're never really happy, right, with what they're doing. We've seen a lot of movies where they show that women, by the time they realize, it's too late because their whole life is gone. And then, of course, there are women who, despite that, they want to start at even that age, which is wonderful. But people should speak up before marriage and clarify, set the expectations that this is what I'm going to do and this is what is not going to be acceptable to me. So that later on there is no. And after doing this, after doing all this, and the in laws agree and say, okay, you can do whatever you want, and then they change their mind, then I think it's up to the individual whether they want to continue or whether they want to take their own course.
Right. Finally, what would be your advice or takeaways to all the women out there who are currently either in their midlife crisis or in that situation where they have little kids and they're struggling to maintain that equilibrium, but they still want to climb that corporate ladder and be into senior leadership? What would be your advice to them?
One thing that I would like to say is that never give up. Whatever happens, challenges will keep coming. Okay, it's going to be a fairy tale if you have no challenges, and that is not possible. So it's very important to keep at it and always have your purpose in life. It's very important to understand why you're doing what you're doing and eventually what is it that you want. So listen to your intuitions, have clarity. The other thing that, there's some belief you have, right? So for me, it has been Buddhism. So I have been into this Buddhism practice for nearly 11 years now. This is that Nichiren Buddhism where we chant, and there's a lot of study also that we do about the philosophy. So the philosophy teaches you a lot of things like never give up and challenges are going to come and you have to face everything. You have to use your wisdom and take action. So I think that is it. You have to use your wisdom, you have to take action, you have to never give up, and challenges will be there. And I've read a lot that it's just that when you're at the brink of achieving something, that's the time most people give up. You just give up, and then later on you feel, had I not given up, I would have achieved it. So just face the challenges. You just have to keep going at it, and self development is very important. So sometimes what happens is that because of whatever circumstances, we may have to stop working for a while, but that doesn't mean that's the end. You continue on self development, you do things, you read, you learn in whatever way, so that after a few months, you're ready to pick up and start again. So those eliminating those mental barriers. So again, there's this book called Man's Purpose in Life by Viktor Franklin, where he says that we are all prisoners of our own thoughts. So that is very important, that reflection, that understanding that am I being a prisoner of my own thought? You have to release yourself, and only you can do that. Nobody else can do it for you. You can have a good support, you can have good management, you can have good friends, you can have good wonderful family supporting you, but eventually who has to take the action and who has to move ahead is you. So you just have to push yourself. If yesterday you did something, push a little more today, push a little more tomorrow, and don't give up. That will be my advice to all the women leaders.
Yeah, because like you rightly said, right? Whenever we are on the brink of achieving success, that is when people quit. The night is
Yeah.
darkest before the dawn, right? Thank you, Meeta. It was wonderful talking to you and all your advice. I'm sure it would be helpful and inspiring for all the women out there and everyone out there in general who want to achieve and climb that ladder, the corporate ladder. Thank you for
Thank
being my
you.
guest.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful speaking with you and wish you all the very best for your future. And I know you're going through this phase also where you have kids and all, but
Yeah.
remember, don't give up. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm going through this phase where I'm handling the case, I'm handling a corporate job as well as I'm pursuing a passion. So yeah, it's difficult, but I take one day at a time and just go
Absolutely.
with the flow.
Absolutely. All the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.